Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. The sun goes down, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing a song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. You're rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great and Your heart is kind. Oh, Your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons not my heart can find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. And on that day when my strength is falling, the end draws near and my time has come. Still, oh, my soul will sing Your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. And bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. Yes, I worship Your holy name. Lord, I worship Your holy name.
Amen. Amen indeed. All right. So this is how we're going to progress. I'll be taking like 4 questions from the floor. So you just ask your question. I'll just write it down, and the speakers also take note of it. Then when the 4 questions have been asked, then I'll leave the mic here or the mics here so that the questions can be answered. Then we'll go again, questions, so that we don't lose time with the mic just going all over the place. I hope that's clear enough. If you happen to have a question from the other workshops, please be free to ask as well. But we just wanted to prioritize the questions to these individuals here who perhaps you didn't have much time to ask a lot of questions as we were making their presentations. I hope that is clear. So at this time, let me invite those who would want to ask a question to any one of these presenters on any one of the presentations that have been given. If you need a bit more time to think, I can invite the choir to sing. But if you're ready, please put up your hand. Okay, there's a question at the back.
I just wanted to ask that when Jesus is coming, when we're going up into the air, are we going to have wings?
All right, another hand.
I can't say that I have structured this question the way I wanted it, but I've tried my best. I never had these questions until the presentations we dealt with from yesterday until today. In particular, when we were learning about laws and all that, plus reforms. So I've asked it in principle, not specificity, but I have another set where I tried to ask it in specificity. So the question is it permissible to have situational or circumstantial implicit obedience to God's explicit laws? Is it permissible to have situational or circumstantial implicit obedience to God's explicit laws? And what decides this kind of obedience where you seem to be deviating from the explicit law that God gave? Is it permissible to do otherwise of God's explicit laws or commands where God's law is clear? Is it permissible to do otherwise depending on circumstance or situation? And where is the hedge or the boundary of extremism of living the Word of God? I think that's the question. Am I allowed to go into specifics?
It's one question?
I don't know. But I think it's...
Okay, it's good that you've written it. I've also taken note.
Yes.
We can leave that for now. If you have many more, you ask them again. Another person who has a question? According to the way I've captured it, is it permissible to have situational implicit obedience to God's explicit commands?
And what decides, if it is, what decides that kind of obedience? You can decide how to do according to situation or circumstance. And then I qualified it, that is it permissible to do otherwise to God's explicit laws, maybe depending on circumstance or situation?
Okay, if we need more clarity, we'll come back to you since you have it nicely written down. For now, let's just get the other questions. There's a hand behind you.
Right. Maybe I also would like to thank you for the organizers in a special way, for the opportunity that we can come and have the panel to discuss in detail. My question is around the signal for the time for us to leave the cities. Maybe if you could maybe touch it more. The final signal that really signalizes that we need to leave the cities. Maybe just that. If you remind us once again.
Okay, take a note of. Another question?
There are two more from the forum.
Please go ahead and ask them.
How does the emphasis on definite time matter in understanding quotes about time setting? He has highlighted definite. How does the emphasis on definite time matter in understanding quotes about time setting, seeing we seemingly have other time prophecies such as 1,000 years? That's the first.
Repeat it, please.
How does the emphasis on definite time matter in understanding quotes about time setting? Seeing we seemingly have other time prophecies such as 1,000 years. The second one. Jesus spoke about the last generation. Would Christians be able to know assuredly which this generation that would not pass is? Jesus spoke about the last generation. Would Christians be able to know assuredly which this generation that would not pass is? That's from Mr. Gondwe.
Repeat it, please.
Jesus spoke about the last generation. Would Christians be able to know assuredly which this generation that would not pass is?
All right. Can I have the mic back? All right, so there are a few questions there. I think the first one is going to Brother Loaho. Are we going to have wings as we'll be going to heaven? You can pass on the mic.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Very good question. Are we going to have wings? We don't have evidence that we'll actually get wings flying to heaven in order for us to get to heaven. There are many ways that God has used to carry people to heaven and not using wings. When Jesus Christ was ascending to heaven, he wasn't given any wings. He was just ascending, defying gravity and going there just like that. So the evidence from both the Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy we have is not that we're going to get wings, but that we will still be able to move upward to heaven. However, there are statements of Ellen White where she mentions little children having wings. We have in Early Writings, page 18, she says, as we greeted them, I asked Jesus who they were, and he said they were martyrs that had been slain for him. With them was an innumerable company of little ones. They also had a hem of red on their garments. Mount Zion was just before us, and on the mount was a glorious temple, and about it were 7 other mountains on which grew roses and lilies. And I saw the little ones climb, or if they chose, use their little wings and fly to the top of the mountains and pluck up the never-fading flowers. So here she portrays these wings as something that little children will be able to pluck on their bodies and use it to fly up to the mountains. I haven't found any evidence of the saints being given those wings at the second coming. So that was my response. Thank you.
All right. The one who answered the question, satisfied? Okay. The second question, is it permissible to have situational or implicit obedience to explicit commands, and what decides? This looks like it is coming to Brother Owen, unless otherwise.
It is?
Okay, so maybe I'm directing it the wrong way. Okay, so either Brother Loaho or Brother Owen, or whoever is ready between the two of you, can begin to tackle that question.
Excuse me. Maybe because I was not thinking that it would come to me. I'm not prepared to answer the question now. Let me think over it, and then maybe I can get back to it later.
Thank you. The Bible has different types of, when we talk about the law of God, a very interesting way in which it addresses the issues of the law. We have principles that are unchangeable, unvarying, under no circumstances a violation of principle permissible. And then you have, for example, the commandment says, "Thou shalt not murder." But we see in the Old Testament a lot of, God commanding the children of Israel to go and basically annihilate a nation, including their little children. So where's the consistency in that? Is it not a violation of the commandment that speaks against murder? And I think that's where you're coming from, if I understand your question correctly. It is very important to understand that God's law is very broad. And it's very consistent. There's no contradiction to the law of God. And the principles are very clearly laid out. Even the stipulation of the laws are very clear. Just following up on the example that I gave here specifically. In the book of Isaiah, it says, "I've made Israel my battle axe." So God used the nation of Israel to punish the pagan nations the same way that he used the flood to punish the antediluvians, or uses the fire to punish cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So the fact that God chooses you and makes you execute judgment on the heathen is not necessarily implying that you are violating the Ten Commandments. When Israel was going there to try and punish the Canaanites because their cup of iniquity was full, they were in harmony with God's law, although the law says, "Thou shalt not murder." Because they were not murdering, they were actually executing judgments on those nations. God chose them as a battle axe that he uses to discipline other nations. The same way that God chose, Babylon to try and punish Israel for their sin. Sometimes God, instead of using fire, flood, earthquakes, he uses human beings. And in that sense, those human beings are not murdering. They don't have any personal vendetta or revenge that they are manifesting. It's just an obedience to a clear command of God. And when you speak about A.T. Jones, Ellen White, I don't think it's a fair comparison, because A.T. Jones is just like you and I. When we talk about Ellen White, she occupies a higher level in terms of moral guidance in our actions. She is a prophetess. So when she speaks, she says, "The Lord showed me this." So her authority is the same authority like you have of Bible writers. So in that sense, that we follow the counsel of the prophet versus a man, no matter how articulate or high positioned they may be. So the limits are the written law. It should be clearly stated, and situational ethics should not lead us to disobey plain thus saith the Lord, or violate the principle that is there. So I don't know whether this is helpful, what I've just given.
A follow-up?
Is there any additions?
Maybe the follow-up in the same line. I've understood how you've drawn the answer. The follow-up would be, I understood that in this specific example, A.T. Jones was saying that the Sabbath law extends throughout the week, that when the week is starting, we are waking, and then we are resting on the Sabbath. So to him, he was following the clear thus saith the Lord sort of scripture, and Ellen White was saying, well, you can rest on the Sabbath regardless of because of the situations that were happening. It's not necessary for you to be imprisoned and all that. So I think that's where I'm really confused, that when do we know when to follow this that seems clear from the Bible, or when to follow, I don't want to believe they're different, but I want to understand maybe how they are one and the same. I'm even failing short of words in how to put it, but I think you've gotten it.
Very good question. It appears like it was just a matter of interpreting Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11, when it says, 6 days shalt thou labor. What does that mean in actual fact? So Ellen White's view was, it doesn't necessarily mean that you must work Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then rest on Sabbath. A.T. Jones' understanding was it means you must work Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So that is the view. So which view was correct? That is your question. So the correct view is that if we go back and read this text, it was Ellen White's view, and you will see why and in what sense. Because the implication of A.T. Jones' statement is that if I decide to take a day off and rest on Monday, I am violating the fourth commandment. Yeah, so is that really true? Does God want us to all work every day, and if we don't work, no matter what circumstances, then we are violating the fourth commandment, which is not necessarily correct a view, because if you are sick, you can't work the whole day. Sometimes you're not sick, you're just tired. You need to just take a day off and rest. There are different passages of the Bible where Jesus called the disciples to go and rest, and literally they did nothing. The same way that you would when you're resting, and so that you can get rejuvenation. So A.T. Jones was taking it to the extreme, which was his tendency to take things to the extreme. So his understanding was not complete. So I understand the fourth commandment to be in harmony with what Ellen White is saying, because if you read verse 9, it says, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. The implication of the verse is complete whatever you can within 6 days. And you should not allow your work to extend to the seventh. Not you must work every day of the seventh. So that's the difference. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you for that response. The other question is about signals for leaving the cities. I know your question didn't finish, but let me add to your question, because leaving the cities will have several things at the end of it. One of them is running, you're going to the mountain. People are saying live in the cities, you have to go live in the country. So I don't know which signals you are looking for, whether it's signals to go and live for country living or signals for flight. But I'm sure the ones to respond will touch perhaps on both, because we've just said signals for leaving the cities. So I think it's a quite open question. Yeah. Over to you, our panelists.
I'm in trouble today. We read a statement, I'm just trying to locate it, where Ellen White speaks about it will then be time. I think it's an established principle that God's ideal was that his children should all be in the country. But there are those who circumstantially are positioned to be in the cities because of one reason or another. Some of them are not able to leave. For some of them are studying, or they are in so much debt that they can't even relocate or anything like that. So Ellen White gives even instruction that children of those people in the cities who can't live because of certain situations, there should be schools built to accommodate those needs. So there are certain types of work that she says could be done in the cities, restaurant work and others, that in certain situations may require some of our brethren to be staying in the cities. So the question is, when will be the time for them to leave? She speaks about Matthew 24, when it speaks about when you see the abomination that maketh desolate stand in the holy place, then you need to flee. And she interprets that to be saying that when the papacy starts assuming its power and wants to reign, so that in her writings implies Sunday laws. So she's basically telling us that when the Sunday law is enacted, it will then be time for those who are still in the cities to now leave. So that is the last signal when the Sunday law comes. Because she says they will leave the large cities to the smaller cities and to the villages in preparation to go to the mountains. So there's that phase of them leaving the cities in that sense. And then there is that one that I also mentioned about the death decree. When the death decree is given, then many of God's people were leaving the cities and the villages and they were running to the mountains, which is not necessarily, country living is more of fleeing to the mountains for survival. So that is the distinction that I see. So what I'm saying is not that we need to wait in the cities until the Sunday law. The encouragement is that we should all move out of the cities, but if for one reason or another you can't leave, if you are in that category of the exception to the norm, then you should know that the last signal God is giving you is during the Sunday law, especially the Sunday closing laws. That will be the signal for us to leave. I don't know whether it's clear. Okay, thank you.
I think it's clear. Perhaps the emphasis is not the first, it's the last sign. That when it comes to this point, in Chichewa, people like to say, mwana wakana pala, as in when a child begins to refuse to eat porridge, you know you are really in a serious situation. So I hope that's clear. Okay, the other question is how does the emphasis on a definite time matter in understanding quotes around time setting, seeing we have other specific prophecies like the 100,000 or 1,000 years or something like that. So yeah, I hope the question is clear. So we're going to give a warning next time that next time you ask a set of questions, please throw them across the board. Seems the first 5 have just come to you.
Yeah, I guess I was the only one who didn't have a Q&A. So I understand the question to be saying this: why should this issue of no definite time matter after 1844 when we have a time prophecy? Because 1,000 years is a time prophecy. So it's a time prophecy that's given. So if there is a time prophecy there, why can't there be other time prophecies that would be permitted? Yeah, that is the essence of the question. Okay, that's a very good question. The statement says there are no time prophecies between what time and what time? 1844 and second coming. So she's very specific. The duration between 1844 and second coming, there is no time prophecy. After second coming, there is obviously a time prophecy, which is 1,000 years. So the 1,000 years falls outside the category of no time prophecy because it's very specific. Second coming in 1844. It's the similar question that sometimes people ask, especially in the opening of the seventh seal, when it says there was silence in heaven for half an hour. Adventists have understood that to be 7 days. And then they say, you see, we have a time prophecy there, but hang on a moment, when does that happen? It happens also after the second coming. So this still all falls outside the boundary line. 1844 second coming, no time prophecy. And after that, there could be time prophecies as given in the examples I have stated. Thank you.
All right. While these questions are being answered, please start brewing more. We are coming to ask for more questions. The last one is, would Christians know assuredly which generation or that they are in the final generation? As in, will they know assuredly that, because it mentions about the final generation, do people know assuredly that they are the final generation? That's the last question for this first segment of questions.
Is it mine again? This issue has caused a lot of confusion, and it's one of the reasons why sometimes people run into time setting. If you turn with me in your Bibles to Matthew chapter 24, and let's go to the text that is quoted. It's Matthew 24 verse 34 and 35. It says, "Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." So the question is, which generation is this that shall not pass? So if you look at the previous 2 verses before verse 34, it says, "Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So the question is, which generation is this that will not pass? According to verse 33, is the generation that sees all these things fulfilled. The generation that sees all these things fulfilled. Which generation is that will see all things fulfilled? Let me take you back to Matthew chapter 24, the beginning verses, and understand that Matthew 24 is a dual prophecy. You have it speaking about the destruction of Jerusalem, and then you have an end-time application also speaking about the destruction of the world. So when Jesus was making this statement, it has a dual application. In the first application, it applies to the generation that was alive during the time of Christ. That generation that was alive in AD 31, and generations in the Bible run a span of 40 years. You remember when the children of Israel were moving from Egypt to Canaan, and the Lord said, all this generation will pass. And that is a reference to a 40-year period. And I could give you more examples in the Bible. So when you count from AD 31 and you add 40 years, what year do you come to? 71 AD. So when did the destruction of Jerusalem happen?
70 AD.
70 AD. And they were able to witness many of these things. There were earthquakes, there was famine, there was pestilences, there was Christian persecution. The gospel was preached to every creature in their generation. All these things that are mentioned in the book of Matthew 24 were fulfilled by AD 70. So that was the primary application of the text. It applied to the group that will see all these things, and that primary group that Christ was addressing, that generation was speaking to, did not pass, because the year when that generation was to pass, the destruction of Jerusalem happened. They were able to witness all of that. So that is the first response to that this generation will not pass. The second application, which is what Ellen White mentions, also the pioneers mentions, is the generation that sees all these things happening. Is the generation that will not pass. Let me explain what I mean. What I mean is a generation that will witness deception, famine, earthquakes, Sunday laws, the 7 last plagues. That generation will not pass until all these things are fulfilled. So the key is what we find in verse 33. It says, and if ye see all these things, it's the generation that was going to witness everything. So some of the generations have witnessed parts of these things, and those generations have passed because they did not see everything. You understand what I'm saying? So the generation that will witness everything, that generation will not pass. I hope I'm not confusing anyone. Okay, thank you.
All right. I know I'm sitting on the side, but I wanted to read this quotation from the same Matthew 24. It says, one saying of the Savior must not be made to destroy another. Though no man knoweth the day nor the hour of his coming, we are instructed and required to know when it is near. We are further taught that to disregard his warning and refuse or neglect to know when his advent is near will be as fatal for us as it was for those who lived in the days of Noah, not to know when the flood was coming. So there are signs that have been given here. When ye shall see these things, know that it is near. So people in Noah's day, they disregarded those warnings and they were punished. All right, we have done the first set of questions. We would have 5 more questions that can come so that we answer them. May I come? I was trying to avoid you as a person. Okay, it's from the group, it's fine.
This question is specifically directed to Mrs. Mandula. It's a 3-fold question. So the first one is where to get the hard copies of homeschooling syllabus in Malawi or links, etc. That's the first one. The second one is...
Ask it again, please.
where can we get homeschooling syllabus hard copies in Malawi or links, etc.? The second part is coming from Jedida. Any comment about daycare schools trying to use the true education system, especially from 6 months to 3 years? There's a follow-up to that one. If no, is it not better than leaving the kids to maids who have no knowledge on true education at all? Any comment about daycare schools trying to use the true education system, especially from 6 months to 3 years? If no, is it not better than leaving the kids to maids who have no knowledge on true education at all?
All right, those are first two questions. Can we have another one asking? There's a hand in front, which I've recognized.
Okay, let me just
Sorry,
push.
I was not counting you as a person.
I know.
Go ahead.
All right. Since we on her, let me push this one on her too. I just want to have her give us her own experience, how she managed to find all the resources that she showcased in the, was it yesterday? Because she brought the books. We just want to know, how did she have all those things at once, or then start thinking about having children, or she got the children then started thinking, what should I do? Or how can she advise young couples like us before we start thinking of having children and on their education? Do we need to when do we need to start getting those materials, and is it that we should have a lump sum of them at once, maybe to cover for their primary or somewhere there, or you can start one by one? So that was my question.
Noted. You can pass on the mic.
I have two questions. The first one goes to Mrs. Mandula.
Go ahead.
Okay. I am a mother with 2 children. One is 9 years. She's turning 10 in July, and the other one is 6 years. The first one is in year 5, grade 5. The last one is in grade 1. What would you advise me if I am to be thinking of enrolling them in homeschooling? The second question. I have never understood the prophecy about the 144,000, which is found in Revelation chapter 14 from verse 1 to 6. Is it a literal number to say that the 144,000 are the members or the people that are going to be saved? Or what does it really say?
All right, thank you. We have 5 questions. A few of them have been directed to my Mandula, so I'll be having an answer one at a time with the breaks in the middle. So, where can one get hard copy or links to get hard copy of homeschooling syllabus in Malawi? That's the question.
Thank you for the question. We share the links on the group where one can get hard copies. You can also get them in PDF. If you decide to buy them, then you can print them. So some are in black and white, some are in color. So if one decides to print in color, from my experience, you find that the cost of printing in color and the cost of buying, they look at each other, so you're better off buying the hard copies if you so need a hard copy, but they're available online.
The next question is, there are daycares out there. They would want to, since people are giving them children, so they want to use a true education curriculum on ages 6 months to 3 years. What's your comment on that? Because the other contrast, they're saying the people's choice, the other choice they have is just to leave children with maids at home. So is this not a better move? What's your comment there?
Well, the issue of daycares, you find that you also put your child within the same system. So in you trying to save and redeem other people's children, your child is likely to copy the characters that you are trying to eliminate from the other children. Reason being, the hours you spend with this child and the hours the child also spends with the parents, it is all dependent on what the parent does with the child. For example, you may say, we need you to teach the child some scripture songs, and you find that most parents do not apply any of those principles. They're expecting you to do it. And according to SOP, the first 3 years are the formative years of the child's character. It is the mother's responsibility. It is not a daycare responsibility to build a character in a child. It is a duty that is solemn and only given the parents of the child. So in as much as the world is compromising to have daycares for babies, I for one would discourage for one to run a daycare that is carrying little ones, because you're putting on yourself the burden that is not yours. It was not assigned to you. So if you feel that you can manage to go ahead, you may go ahead, but weigh the risks of your child getting the characters which you don't want. While you're trying to uproot others, yours will get in those things. That is from the experience that I've had in trying to run a daycare, in trying to uproot and help parents. Sometimes you suffer along the way, and two, you cannot save two masters. So most times you find that you neglect your own child in trying to win the souls of others, because, well, there's money involved there, right? So you have to keep up the pace to say, parents have paid in and I have to do my best for their children, and yet in so doing you neglect to look at yours who are within your care.
All right, let's jump to Revelation 7 and 14. Daloaho is 144,000. Come again? Okay.
I just want to add on that. At the age of 0 to 8, that's the age that you cannot delegate motherhood, even though that's what is happening today in the career world. In some cultures, I've seen it with the Afrikaans women in South Africa, but also the Indian community here in Malawi. When a mother had the firstborn, and the wife will actually be at home with the mother until that child starts grade 1, or the last born starts grade 1. Now, in our culture, maybe I cannot say the culture, but in the way we live in the society, we Africans, local Malawians, we employ the maid to do the work of the mother. The white people, they employ the maid to do the other jobs so that the mother has the time with the child. So for us, we think motherhood is something that you can delegate to the daycare so that I have time to do other things. While our friends, they employ other people to do other things so that they have time for the child. So in short, I can say motherhood at that age is not supposed to be delegated. So the daycare is just as bad as the maid. The best person to be with the child is the mother. It's a question of deciding between having 2 salaries or a better child.
Interesting answers there. All right. I wanted us to transition to Dalwaho, prepared to answer about 144,000. But just a quick comment to what was being said here. Maybe the ones who introduced this idea of hiring maid, maybe some of us, whether I should say Malawians or Africans, we did not observe correctly why the maid was being hired. Is this maid coming for the chores or for the child? So I think because the maid perhaps was trying to help with the child here and there, the future generations, we said, no, I think we're hiring for the child. When the colonizers had left, so we thought it was prestigious that now I have a maid take over everything, including the child. Now they're even taking over caring for the husband. So maybe we didn't observe very well. Those guys were hiring the helper for the chores, not for the husband or the child. I hope we've taken note of that. Okay, 144,000. Is it literal or just a figure?
I also wanted to just say 2 cents of worth to what has been commented here. Why is it that we keep insisting on a mother playing that role? If you study Ellen White's writings and you also study early childhood development, how the child develops, the part of the child that develops early is the emotional part. So this emotional development of the child when they are very young, from especially the ages of 0 up to 4 or 5 years. The part of the brain that gets myelinated, the myelination of the nervous system inside the brain of a child, is the emotional part of the brain initially. And then the cognitive is the one that gets myelinated a bit later. So what that does is that this child learns to trust whoever is present there during those formative years. That's why Ms. Mandula says these are formative years. It's almost like giving your child to someone else to lay a foundation for the rest of their life. And those years are so critical that if they are not correctly managed, studies that have been done by psychologists have shown that these children who had no proper care from the ages of 0 to 5, especially with no stable dependent guardian at home, they ended up ending in prison, they ended up with premarital intimacies, they ended up with drug abuse purely because they lacked that care that was there. So it is important. We do understand that there are situations where somebody has a child out of wedlock. They don't have any other way of maintaining this child unless they're working. So we're just saying that the ideal, the best for the child is this. But you should know the damage that you cause the child in giving the child over to other people. Anyway, now to the issue of the 144,000. I have a series that I've recorded on our YouTube channel on this issue. There's a sermon there entitled 144,000 literal or symbolic. I would think I would refer you to that series because the more I try to explain it, the more questions will come out of it. But just a simple basic explanation is that when we say a number in Bible prophecy is symbolic or literal, we are basing it on something that is the way the Bible has used a specific number. For example, the number 7. The number 7, we say it's symbolic of what? Perfection, right? And why do we say that? Because the Bible has used the number 7 so many times, and we've been able to study how this number 7 has evolved over time. So we take this number 7 and we come to the book of Revelation, and it speaks about the 7 churches. So when it speaks about the 7 churches, we know that the number 7 is symbolic of perfection. But it's also, its symbology does not destroy its literality, because you still have 7 literal distinct periods in which God's church exists. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the 144,000 in the Bible, the number is only used twice, Revelation 7 and 14. And in both cases, you cannot determine its symbology. You can't tell whether, if you say 144,000, it's symbolic. It's symbolic of what? You can't even articulate that. So to be consistent, Bible scholars in the Adventist Church have tried to say, okay, let's break down this number 144,000 to 12 times 12,000. We know what the number 12 represents. We know what the number 12,000 represents in the Bible. But the question is, why are you doing that? Why do you want to divide it that way? Because why are you choosing to do it that way when the Bible decided to divide it differently? And why do you want to take the symbology of the number 12, the symbology of the number 12,000, and apply it to the number 144,000? Why don't you take the number itself and make it symbolic? So those are questions that come with that. I personally believe that this number 144,000, it is literal. Even if you were to argue that it's symbolic, you can't even prove whether it's symbolic of a bigger number or a lesser number. Why do you say that? And also, when you look at the number 144,000, it's not talking about people that will be saved. If you study 144,000, these are people who will never die. The 144,000 will never die until Jesus comes. So these are the people that will live until Jesus comes. And with everything that we have mentioned, the 7 last plagues falling, a lot of martyrs dying, a lot of godly people are going to die. They are going to be resurrected and join the 144,000. This is not the number of those who will be saved. I mean, the Bible is very clear. Those who will be saved, no one can number them. But there's a specific number that the Bible mentions, which have a specific role. That's why I want you to go to our YouTube channel, watch the series I've done. It's a 7-part series on this issue of the 144,000. On the Pure Light Missions YouTube channel, you'll be able to get more information on that. Thank you.
All right. It seems there's something special about this number. If it was in the military, as he was presenting, maybe it is the Marines, a special group of soldiers. I don't know, because Sister White says, pray that it should be among that number. So I wonder what that number really, what experience we'll have to go through. But before reward, there's always a trial that you have to go through. So be prepared if you're asking for, maybe there's something people have to go through to be the only ones that have actually come through all these things. Yeah, interesting. Okay, we'll go back to my Mandula, unless the panelists have something to add regarding 144,000. No. Okay. Right. Your experience, Madam Maya Mandula's experience on how you accumulated all those resources. Were you waiting for the time to have one child, get a resource for this level, another one this level? Did you have them all prior? How would you advise somebody who is thinking about homeschooling? They don't have a child. Should they wait until they have children? So I think you can touch on all that issue of resources and what was your experience and what do you advise?
That is more like wanting my testimony on that. The first thing, I think yesterday I mentioned that I've accumulated the books in the period of 12 years. So before the child was born, I would buy reading books. There was a period liturgy evangelists would have books for children to read, Bible stories. So I used to get those. And then when the child was born, well, I was just reading to her any other story that I would find. Until I joined the AY department. In the AY department, I met this Zimbabwean lady. I observed what she was doing. Being the habit of observing people with children, it helps a lot in some of the decision making. I saw that she had a habit that she would take her boys out during classes when parents are feeding their children. So I got closer to find out, okay, why she does that. Then I noticed that her kids were memorizing a lot of scripture. So I asked her, what does she do? And she says, I homeschool my kids. So I got interested. I visited her home. Like, okay, I want to see what you do. Besides, for me, it was mainly for the first years. It was more like preschool age. Well, I can't waste money. I can't give anyone money on the things that I can do. I can teach them ABC from home. So it is something very small. So when I go to her home, she was using the AY pamphlet, the ones for Little Lamb and Eager Beavers. And also she was using the Sabbath School Quarterly. If you notice the ones for the children, they have activities to do from Sunday to Friday. So those activities, you can't do them at church. You don't have enough time to do that. But when you're home, you can do one activity per day, so you have something for you to do with the child. So along the way of life's journey, my Mazalo told me, my friend, there is this curriculum called Sunlight. So I got to know about Sunlight from Mrs. Mazalo. The first one that I looked at was the English syllabus. It's different from this one. Then she said, no, you need the Bible-based one. Then somehow I found myself in a group of Sunlight people, the Afrikaans one, the one that had the boys who do homeschooling, but because of language barriers, we could only pick here and there when somebody puts a link and all that. And then on that group, I met a certain lady. Her name is Melinda. She's a good friend of mine. She is one person who's been so good at looking for curriculums. So she has a website where she's put a lot of curriculums that you can use for your child, for academics, for music, for cooking, for sewing, any extra things that you'd want. You can find it on her. And then I joined a Sunlight group for the African ones, the one that appeals to us, the African people. It is Zimbabweans, Kenyans, Nigerians, Ghanaians, majority South Africans. So there people throw in a little bit of resources on where they are finding what and how they are going about it. So now I got introduced to Sunlight and I started using it. For me, I didn't find much problem because I already enjoy crafts, and I'm coming from where I'm using the Sabbath school lessons that have more like a lot of crafts for you to do with the child. So the transition was a little bit easier on the activities to do. We did not have money that was sitting there for us to buy things that we needed, but I would squeeze in on the money allocated to food for the month. So I'd find some way to squeeze in, and I'd squeeze myself and buy something. So my husband would always be surprised, okay, how did you get this? I'm like, well, I squeezed in some way. It balanced. So I started getting toys. There will be like things like animals, those ones you find in Chinese shops. And if you're any longer more Chinese, and then there is Santa Plaza. So you literally have to be somebody who's scouting and looking for things. Then when Sunlight started to talk about field guides, that posed a challenge, but because I would enter town and any little more I would look into it. If there are bookshops, that's how I would find what I'm looking for. So then when we then entered the academics season, that's when we started finding to say we needed to buy curriculums from outside because the Malawian syllabus for me could not provide what I wanted to achieve in the children. One thing that I can say is, if you're looking for something, big guarantee God makes sure you find it. Whichever way, He'll open a door for you to find it. For example, for me to be able to print most of the Sunlight materials, a friend came home and said, my Mandula, I have a printer and my ink is expiring in a few days. Would you like to use it? You can just buy your own papers. I'm like, no problem. So when they brought in the printer, they said, well, since I've used it for 6 months, the ink hasn't run out. So you're likely not to finish all of it. You might print everything that you want and I'll still remain with more ink. So I printed the whole first set of books. And it came to a point where the ink was finished. I call them like, the ink is finished. He goes, how? I'm like, I don't know, but my books are 300 pages to 500 pages. So then they're like, don't worry, I'm bringing in the other ink. So just exhaust everything. So they brought in the other ink. Then I printed another. So everything that I wanted from Sunlight, I was able to print because somebody provided their machine and their ink for me to use. That's when I discovered that, no, the LaserJet printer is a good printer. It prints for a very long period of time. And I got to learn that in a home, you need to have a printer, whether it's black and white or it's color, but you need to have it because there will be sometimes way of activities that you need to print for your children to use. So it is a needed thing. So I got a print. I then ended up buying myself a printer and a laminator and also a binder. So all those machines for your home setup, I got to have them. The other thing that helped me to have more resources, YouTube channel. In as much as it has bad things, it also has good things. So I'd look for homesteading families because most homesteading families who are on the farms, they homeschool their children. So normally at the first beginning of the year, they'll show you what they are teaching their children, which curriculums they are using, how they are getting them, if one is printing, how they are doing it, whether it's teaching letters, how they are doing it, whether it's teaching numbers, how they are doing it. So in that way, I was able to find things that I needed based on what I was watching. So whatever you want, the internet has a way of making you see, but you need to be strict on what you're looking for and be guaranteed that God always opens the way when you're looking for resources to use in teaching your children.
All right, panelists, any additions to those responses?
The other very powerful resources, SDA Homeschool .com. I think it's .com. It's a collection that is developed by Seventh-day Adventist homeschoolers globally, and it has a lot of resources that you can have access to. And my advice would also be that if you are thinking and planning to have children, it's better to start reading on homeschooling, get yourself acquainted with it, and know that children are a gift from the Lord. I don't know whether I can say that you should go ahead and buy some of the materials, because you may discover that you may not have children, so you would, unless you're willing to give it away. So that is one thing I would say, that there's a lot available and there's a lot out there. There are many more curriculums that will cater for your situation, but get yourself well read in this area of homeschooling while you still can, before you have any child. If you have a small child, it's an opportunity for you to learn a lot. Thank you.
All right. I think on just a quick comment on the same. I think the emphasis is get to have as much knowledge as you possibly can regarding homeschooling, because our experience, and I for one, for whatever reason, I grew up praying that I would want my children to be homeschooled, but I really didn't understand what homeschooling was, or at least true education and all these things. But I wanted homeschooling so bad. So as we're starting, it's like it was like learning on the job. Now you want the job, now you want to go back and start learning what true education is. So it was very, very hard. It has been a very hard journey to learn. But I think for someone who is wishing like that, I think it would be best to start researching a little bit early to get to understand what true education is, homeschooling, what are the resources. The earlier you may do that, I think the better. Even if the Lord does not bless you with little members in your family, just the true education route and homeschooling and everything that goes on in there, even as a marriage, it can take you to another level. All right, there was another question. A 10-year-old, a mom of 10 and thinking the other child is 6. They're already level 10, level 3, I think, and thinking of homeschooling the children. How does she make that transition? How does she even begin to think of something like that?
Well, first of all, the 9-year-old, you said she's in grade 5. All right. That is also a challenge, because that child should be somewhere in grade 3, but not 5. But since she's already in 5, you need to sit down and be talking to your children and find out how school is like. What do they go through? How are they faring? Are they liking it or they don't like it? What do they like? And you need to study with them on this truth that you've come to know. Somewhere in child guidance, it says, parents apologize to your children for the knowledge that you didn't know. In that way, you're able to start a foundation afresh to say, you know what? I am sorry I didn't know about this, but now I know. I would want us to try this method. So prepare your children for the journey that you want to take. And where possible, study with them what you've come to know so that they're able to be acquainted with it. You don't want to jumpstart. If you jumpstart, they are likely to pull away or back off because it is not something that they're used to. And it's also that in the school system, they're used to having friends and whatnot. According to them, they do things the way they like. The only person they know and are answerable to is the teacher. So now for them to accept you, their mother, to be their sole and only teacher, it will take a lot, and also be prayerful a lot more about it, because it is a journey that you'd want to transition, but transition with the blessing of the Lord. In as much God will literally bless you in this journey, but it needs you to prepare for yourself for the battles also that you go through in trying to remove them from the mainstream to the narrow path. So the journey is doable, but prepare them before you start the journey.
May I add, prepare also the materials you're going to use before you start the journey. Because sometimes what brings frustration, true education, really, you're getting someone for something which is not worse, something which is just good enough to something better. Sometimes I feel what brings problems is you take a child from this thing which is good enough and you take them to nothing. So now that creates confusion. But where have you brought me now? Where are the materials? Where is this? Where is that? Where are the activities? It becomes frustrating. So as you're thinking, as you've already said, as you're praying, start making the preparations on the other side. That, okay, so which level am I going to start from and all these things? When that transition is happening, they are now enrolling into another homeschool, as it were, where the parents, I think, are ready to handle all aspects that we have spoken about, I think, today. So the transition is quite critical. You really have to do it very well because the children are quite advanced. Do the transition very, very well. Okay, we are moving to the next set of questions, but we have a special song from Nozagani and Nomsa. Prepare yourselves very well. All those also who have questions, I'll come to the questions. Maybe just for you to brains to refresh, we should have a special song and then we'll take the other questions. So, Noze and Nomsa, may you come to the front and sing the special song. Or they are kind of playing first. Fine, we'll start the questions and when they are ready, they always come. There's a hand here, please. Okay, another hand is here. So let me start with this hand that came out first, and I'll come there.
Yeah, thanks so much for this opportunity to ask questions. The first question is, it is said that homeschooling or true education should be home-like. So in a case whereby children are ready for the academics, how can you make the children's education home-like in a church school setup or institutional setup? How can you make it home-like when the children reach the level of whereby they are ready for academics? Number two, in the same understanding that the children are ready for academics, if some parents in other contexts, there are parents who are not able or who cannot homeschool their children because of maybe their abilities. Maybe there are those parents in situations where they don't know even how to read or write. So is it okay to arrange that as you homeschool your children, you bring their children on board together with your children? That's the second question. Third question, I think this one will go to Brother Gandhi. We learned that the country living, there are aspects where you have the home-based resources, home-based industries, home-based education, and home-based ministry. What is the secret of balancing these, especially in the context whereby resources are limited? How can you balance these things, making sure that each area of this is working when there are limited resources? And I was saying the arms or the aspects or the dimensions of country living that were pointed out: home-based ministry, home-based education, home-based industries, and home-based resources. What is the secret, or how can you balance them in the context whereby you have limited resources? Because in other cases you would need helping hands and other resources, but those resources are not there. How can you balance all those things? Finally, yeah, the final one, still on to Brother Manzaro. Home-based ministry. Can you substitute it with home-based education? Since as your homeschooling is also a kind of ministry to the children, so can you substitute it with home-based ministry? Yes, that as you are doing home education, it means you are as good as doing home based ministry. Can that be the case?
I was looking at you because I wanted to hand back the mic because Mr. Chigosa did ask the question that I wanted to ask, but now maybe just to add on what he asked, I wanted just to find out that is it appropriate to have all the necessary resources and you're geared to start homeschooling, but maybe you have some, maybe you have some capabilities whereby you cannot handle. Then instead of you, yes, we have learned that a mother is the best teacher, but now instead of you teaching your children homeschooling, you employ someone to do the teaching on your behalf. Is it appropriate? Thank you.
All right. I've seen your hands. Seems I've exhausted my quota for now. The girls, can you come and sing while the presenters are thinking about their answers?
For your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing all the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing all the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You were close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Amen. I will sing of the goodness of God. My quota is finished with the questions. I also had a question I wanted to add, so I had already written it. So forgive me. I wanted to be the first one to ask the question. I had already written it on the page. Will you allow me just to say it? Otherwise, if I go to another page, I may forget. To Brother Owen, the issue of Sabbath keeping in the 21st century. I, for one, on Sabbath, I will not go to the bank. I will not go there, do any transactions. That's as far as I've known growing up. But this 21st century has brought in certain things, like mobile money, like giving offering using POS devices, which has brought in a little bit of controversy when some of these things are being mentioned, that no, you're buying airtime on Sabbath. But the airtime is already, what I would want some comments there regarding Sabbath keeping in the 21st century with all these technologies that we have now. And also you had made in one of the quotations, I think you indicated bathing before the Sabbath. This can be done in this century that we're living now. Like we have geysers there and all these things. How do we apply this principle? Do we take it literally, just go make sure you bath before the Sabbath, or is it, I would want a comment on that one as well. So to be fair, I will start with the questions that have already been asked. That one can be last, so you can give time to think about it. I'll start with the last one. If you really want to homeschool your child, but somehow you're not able to do it, is it okay just to get somebody else to do it for you, who perhaps understands these things? So, my Mandra, as you answer that, perhaps you can tie it in together with Chikosa's question, that fine, you are the one homeschooling just fine, but there's somebody else now, because these two people, the question is coming from two directions. So you are the one who's homeschooling, someone can't do it, they're bringing the child your way. Should you take this child on board? Let's start there.
On the issue of employing someone on your behalf, it is dependent on the subjects that you are not conversant with handling. Also, the person you are trying to take has to have the same beliefs as you. It is not just them being a teacher who knows academics, but it's about them having the same beliefs that you have. So in SOP, when running schools, it says we should have missionaries because they understand the principles that you're trying to bring into the child. So you can't just employ any person because they're a teacher. Also be considerate of the gender when you're also trying to employ these teachers for your children, because a lot of things are happening in our day-to-day age. So it is not that easy anymore to just say, I'll just employ anyone to help my child as they learn. Now, the same principles when you're trying to take in somebody's child because the parent is not acquainted with academics or with school, please be prayerful on these things, because for me, your biggest challenge is the issue to do with character building. Because if you're going to take somebody's child into your space, you are literally saying you want to be the parent for that child for that period of time. But I'm not too sure about the characters of this child that you're bringing into your space. I'll give a simple example. At one point, I was running 2 weeks program for kids to teach them cooking, so in like a holiday school, something for fun for the kids, so that they're not completely out of touch with the things that they need to know. So we're doing cooking, we're doing sewing, we're doing music, crafts, learning the Bible and all that. The children I brought who came in, they're all from Adventist families. But the boys were playing kung fu and karate and other things. So as a sport for themselves, you know, you're inside, you're preparing, the kids are in early, some are playing outside and all that. Now, for the duration of the 2 weeks, everything was looking all good. They all learned what they needed to learn. They applied them. They even did some of the garden works at home, learned to make their own mops, their broomsticks and all that, and they were gone. Now, one day I saw my child playing outside. Now, my children have never, growing up, they've never done the fighting and all, raising their hands. But I saw my child practicing kung fu. You understand? This is a girl child. She's practicing what? Kung fu. And I'm seeing it through the window. And I just take a video and I'm like, huh? So what then happens is, in as much as you're trying to help other people's children, be very sure you know the characters of your children. If you know that you have a child who is easily taken up by things, I will urge you, please do not bring in any other child until your characters in your home are straight up and they can stand on their own. If they can't stand, your chances of undoing what they've learned are 10 times harder than you not doing it all. You're better off trying to empower this family or finding a missionary who can go and do the work, the half work for you. Also, you can check how other families have done it, but most people that I've spoken to who have tried to bring in other children have struggled to uproot the characters that their kids have taken from these helping, they're trying to help the other family. So there's always a challenge in trying to redeem that. Make sure yours can stand the storms.
All right. Any additions on the panel if you want to add to that question? Seems there's none. So Damadzalo, can you take up the issue of home-based ministry, home-based resources, home-based industries? How do you balance these things having limited resources?
All right. I think when I was showing those things on the slide, I was not showing them in the order of priority. But if you are following the series from the beginning, you may remember when you are doing the homesteading, the first lesson, what did we say the first thing to do when you move to the country? Build yourself a house. Now, if you have limited resources, you know, all of us, when you are planning to move to the country, especially if you understand the holistic approach of country living and true education, for sure, by the time you are thinking of moving to the country, you already have these ideas in your mind, what kind of industries you're going to do. Some, they have plans to have a sanitarium. Some, they want to have a true education, maybe school or a medical missionary school. Some, they have got plans maybe not to do so many things. But what we have learned over the years, observing from so many people who have tried to move to the country, one of the common mistakes that most people do is that when they have limited resources, they want to implement everything at one time. So they put a few resources trying to build a medical missionary school, a few resources trying to build a house, a few resources trying to grow some sugarcane, a few resources to do that, and everything will come to the window level and the resources are gone. So what I have learned from other country dwellers who have done something well, they start with one project at a time. And that is the most wise way, especially when your resources are limited. Build a home first before you think of industries. Because we gave examples that there are people who go there, they want to invest money into industries and they lose all the what? All the little, all the few resources that they had. And at the same time, they also don't have a home. They wanted to plant bananas first, and all the bananas, something goes wrong with the banana farming. All the money is gone. That's the only money that they had. And still at the same time, they don't have a home. So when you move there with little resources, put a home first. And it can be as humble as it can be depending on how little you have. There is no standard of how a country home should look like. It depends on the resources God has given you at your disposal at that time when God has opened the door for you to move to the country. Homeschooling, homeschooling is the lifestyle that you live. The first resource that you need for the homeschool is the Bible. So that thing can happen while you are in the city, when you are already in the country. So that homeschooling cannot wait, or true education cannot wait. If you have the Bible, you have the first textbook, and you add it to the other resources as Sister Mandula was showing us, also as Leroy was showing us, place where you can get resources. But if you have the Bible, the first textbook, and the best curriculum is the parent. So if you parents are there, you are the main curriculum when it comes to character building. So that cannot wait. And after you have a home, then you can move on to the industries. The ministry, when you are talking about home-based ministry, we are talking about when you are thinking of having a full-time ministry like a sanitarium kind of, or something similar. But home-based ministry, I'm not talking about teaching your own children. Ministry, I'm talking about reaching out to the community. And that cannot wait until you have the resources to build a wellness center. You can still have outreach programs with your children, doing community Bible studies, door to door, even before you have a center of influence at your home. But that can be your goal. A home industry can be a goal. A home-based ministry can be a goal. But to start doing those activities, you don't have to wait until you have the resources to put up, a medical missionary school before you can get involved in evangelism and witnessing. So maybe in short, that's how I can say it. Some people may want to add to that.
All right, panelists, maybe is there an addition to what Brother Gandhi has answered? Okay, looks like there's none. We can transition to Brother One, Sabbath keeping in the 21st century.
All right. You mind if I take the second question first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the issue regarding baths, I think I read the statement, must have been from Councils for the Church. When I was reading that statement, I think I was reading it in reference to issues to do with preparation of clothing. I would not want to put forward the thought that I am advocating that baths should not be taken on Sabbath. My personal understanding of it is that baths can be taken, and that statement was a statement that applied to a great extent to the difficulty in taking baths during the time of Ellen White. And so for somebody to get to the point where they are ready after taking a bath on Sabbath, it would take so much time that it would remove the time that would be spent in worship towards God. So that's the understanding that I have, and that's what I would put forward in response to your question. Now, regards to the 21st century, I do not have a clear answer, but then I will state my understanding of the issue based on what Ellen White says regarding traveling. So, Sister White talks about how often we travel on Sabbath too much when it is unnecessary for us to do so. but that in order for us to reach the people, it may be necessary for us to travel to certain places, and that if such an opportunity presents itself, we should do our best to secure our tickets in advance and make all necessary preparations so that our traveling on Sabbath does not include all these other things like purchasing and all that. But in the case where we are even unable or it is impossible to do that because we have to go and minister, we still have to go forward with fulfilling the duty to minister. So regarding issues to do with banking and all these other issues, I think I would first of all say why would we need to use certain services? So in those services, we could also divide them. There are some services such as utilities. My understanding is even as Seventh-day Adventists, we generally look at utilities as something that once you've paid for, even on Sabbath you use, like we're using electricity now, and we know that for the electricity to be generated, it means that at ESCOM somebody is doing some generation. But because we've already paid for the utility, just as we have paid for rent in your house, you don't say on Sabbath I'll not sleep in my house because that part of the rent that I paid on Sabbath and I'm paying for a service on Sabbath. I don't know if that makes sense. So with that thought in mind, special cases should be treated as special cases. Emergencies should be truly treated as emergencies. But that if we need to use banking services, I believe that the emergency setting would make sense. Christ talked about an ass falling in a ditch, and that we would be obliged to make sure that that animal is assisted. So going to the bank on Sabbath, it must be for an issue maybe that you really there's an emergency, maybe somebody's life is at stake, and doing that I think is in perfect harmony with the law of the Sabbath. Maybe there could be more additions from the other panelists. Thank you.
Before the additions come, I want you to touch on the mobile banking issues. Not so much going to the bank, but you see, people are here quietly. Someone can be banking right here, buying airtime and all these things, sitting right there, and you think they're reading a hymn. Yeah.
Okay, so mobile banking. First of all, maybe the question would be: is business transactions acceptable on Sabbath? And generally, we could answer that business transactions are not things we're supposed to do. So when you have money in your Airtel Money, you are not considered to have used that money until you use it for a transaction. So as far as Airtel is concerned, they account that you have purchased credit, even using the money that is in your Airtel Money when you actually make that transfer, because that money could be transferred maybe to another party, and Airtel will not be a beneficiary. So the money is reckoned when the transaction is made. Now, on Sabbath, if you want to buy airtime on Sabbath, why would you want to do that? Is it an emergency? If it's an emergency and all those other criteria are met, then it would make sense. But if not, then it's best to defer that transaction until after Sabbath. That would be my response. Okay.
It's a very important to understand the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, the principle and application of this to the Sabbath issue. I think technology is advancing very quickly, and before we know it, we may probably, if we are not careful, end up permitting everything to happen, because I think what we are trying to do is we basically seem to be saying that because of the amount of time it takes to do something, that is why God is forbidding Sabbath work, which is the case with bathing. The labor that it took to get your bath water ready and for you to bath and clean up. That was the reason for the prohibition. And should that be carried to other areas and we stick to that kind of understanding, then the same applies with cooking. So what if I can put my meal in a machine and it cooks slow cooker. People cook rice slowly, and it's ready to dish just before divine service. So you start it before Sabbath, and you just set the machine, and you're not doing anything. It just cooks through, and just before lunch it's nice and hot. And that's what other Adventists are doing. They don't perceive that as cooking at all. So we still now need to define what is cooking, taking a raw grain until it's ready for consumption. So if we define cooking in that way, then they are technically cooking. But no, but God forbade cooking because of the time it takes, and others have basically, so all I'm saying is, I see it in a similar line with the issue of online transactions. It's just in the tip of my fingers. If I just do this, I'm not disturbing anyone. I'm still in church. It's just a break. In a split of a second, I've done it. So it leads us to justify what can be done and what cannot be done based on the amount of effort and energy we put into doing something. I hold a slightly different view. I know that when God gave this law, He gave it understanding that technology is going to develop. He gave it with clear instructions about buying and selling, knowing that there will be ups in our time where you can just buy something just like that. You could sell something just like that. You could market something right here at the tip of your fingers. It's not because these laws were given then, God was not aware that technology is going to increase. So we need to be careful of rationalizing and philosophizing away standards, or otherwise we will end up with a situation where we don't know where we are going and we don't know what's permitted and what's not. Having said that, to respond to the issue of online transactions, business is obviously not allowed, but in South Africa, in the US, and in other places, I don't know, here in Malawi, sometimes people have an account just in the back of the church pew, so that you do your offerings, especially in the Johannesburg churches. When people bring money, some of the churches got robbers coming in to rob the church. They take everything. So in that case, the churches developed where, okay, there's a certain code that you need to scan with your phone, and then you go to your banking app, you do a transaction, which would be donate your offerings, Sabbath school offerings, or your tithe, or whatever you do. You just do it right away, right there from the bank account. I don't see anything wrong in principle in doing that, because you're just returning tithe and offering to the Lord. So should the tithe be collected on Friday and put in an envelope and labeled and then only dropped on Sabbath? Or is it a violation of the Sabbath for you to go to your online banking and you just pay your tithe directly into the bank account? How about offerings? If I hear a mission story being mentioned on Sabbath and I want to help, is it wrong if I go to my app on the bank and I just decide, okay, let me donate 20,000 kwacha to this ministry for the work they're doing? I don't see that. I just see that you're getting into an electronic wallet and you're just paying that. That is my personal view. I don't know what other people are saying. So that would be my view on that. The statement on bathing on Sabbath has been debated for a long period of time. The way that the problem we have with that statement is that it's only found in Testimonies Volume 6, nowhere else in Ellen White's writings. So, and she lists that statement in a group of other prohibitions. She speaks about, ironing your clothes. She speaks about polishing your shoes. She speaks about bathing. So they're in the same category. So if we say bathing is fine, then consistency will say so is cooking, so is ironing. So that is the principle of consistency. It will say that. But however, when you look at how people who lived during the time of Ellen White understood that statement, you go to Avondale and some of our colleges then, there was a man who would actually be present in the institutions at Avondale to switch off water just before sunset. So if you did not shower, that's it. They will just go and switch it off. And it was happening in our colleges. They understood that to be saying no bath on Sabbath. And of course, human nature is the same. It has always been the same. People had odors then. The sun was still hot then. People still were sweating then. But the way they understood that specific statement was in that sense. There's something else I need to mention to this, so that there's, as you are judging it, it's an individual issue. So I just want you to consider all these factors. In the time of Ellen White, in one of the statements she says, baths should be taken at least twice a week. That tells you the setting of her times. In her times, generally, people would bath once a week, some of them once in 2 weeks. So with that context in mind, you will understand the statement that baths should be taken a day before, because they were not bathing on a day-to-day basis. You understand what I'm saying? You could go for days without bathing, and that was normal practice. That's what she said. No, at least, when you have failed at least twice a week, you should take your bath. So that statement gives you the context of the Victorian age. And we may look at them and get surprised, but the same thing in Africa. I don't think our ancestors took a bath every day. They would stay days, and then once in a while, when you really feel dirty, that's when you go to the river and you bath. So a statement coming from that context and saying that baths could be taken another day was easily understood in that sense. So that's what I'm saying. It's not as easy to dismiss as it looks. So what I usually tell people is a conscience issue. And you can actually bath on Friday and on Saturday, but not on the Sabbath. You can bath every day of the week, but not on the Sabbath, if you understand what I'm saying. The Sabbath begins sunset on Friday, and it ends sunset on Saturday. So we are not saying that you should not bath every day, but should you decide not to bath on Sabbath, you can still remain healthy and not bath on Sabbath. You understand what I'm saying? You can bath just before sunset Friday, and after sunset on Saturday. You're still bathed on Friday, and you're still bathed on Saturday. So there's still many ways of working around it. And seeing that. Am I saying that it's a sin to bath on Sabbath? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that if we are going to condone bathing, we should also condone ironing. We should also condone polishing shoes, because they are all grouped together. So the principle of consistency requires that. So in our analysis of this, we should consider that. And I should also add that God understands and He knows there are different situations that we have to go through. There are emergencies that you may need to meet and things like that. But I just thought I should add that detail on these issues. Thank you.
All right. The way your faces look, it's as if you have follow-up questions on your faces that you want to put up a follow-up question. Mr. Bolo, you wanted to add a follow-up question on which one? No. I think you made it very clear. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. The presenters, anyone to add anything to that before you throw another question? Okay.
This is coming from Mr. Gondwe. The follow-up was that in organizing a conference like this, which option is more in harmony with true Sabbath keeping? So I think there are three options. 1, pay the hotel before Sabbath and they prepare food on Sabbath. 2, request them to prepare our meals before Sabbath? And 3, others, or what then?
Our presenters organizing functions, that is a very interesting experience. Maybe just to put some context, Brother Loaho, I'm sure maybe it happens the same way in your country. When you're having especially like camp meetings or some gatherings, at least maybe this one's a little bit more sophisticated, but where we're having firewood and the pap, sima being cooked and all these things. So the Sabbath becomes an interesting halabaloo. You have people worshiping here. Out there you have smoke coming out. The women, some of them are not even praying here. They are busy cooking there so that the people in here afterwards they should eat. So it always presents a very interesting challenge as to how do you handle the Sabbath meals. But since there was specifically mentioning, I think there's a hotel being mentioned there. So it has come to our very context here, which is now there's another entity hired, as it were, to manage your issues. Now Sabbath has come around and the options being put there. Some guidances can be given. We can discuss. The mic is there.
The question is sensitive. Normally when such functions happen, we pay in advance, right, and book for the services that we are going to be given for the function. Now, you find that many hotels do not have all the equipment that you would have in a home setup to say, I have a food home where I keep the food home and then I'll eat the following day. It is not in part of their policy to be doing such things. So you have paid for a service. They will offer the service in accordance with how they run the service. It is also subjection also to the type of food that you're also cooking and wanting to serve to the people. So if you pay for a service, you've already paid for it. The hotel will run through the service the way they normally run it.
Okay. This has been, I think we need just guiding principles on Sabbath keeping in relation to this. So from the Bible, I would say that it's very important to understand that there are certain things that you are limited to how far you can go with them. We definitely speak about not buying or selling on Sabbath, not cooking on Sabbath. And the Bible is very clear in the 4th commandment that not the stranger within thy gates. So that prohibition is basically assuming that you have a jurisdiction to control anyone who is within your subject matter. And the statement that was read our brother in this morning, he mentioned that people that you are paying and should not be in partnership with you in doing work on the Sabbath hours, because the Lord finds you as guilty as those people were. So that is just a statement. I would ask you to read it after I'm done with this. So there is this very delicate situation that we find ourselves in. And I'm going to throw in various scenarios that have been asked on this issue of Sabbath keeping. One of them is in the big cities of Johannesburg, South Africa, or even where we stay in Mashadodorp. We have a security company that we have hired to make sure that our assets are safe. And on Sabbath, we arm the alarm when we're going to church. And by arming the alarm, we are basically hoping that somebody is working. Somebody is working to ensure that our house is safe. And should there be any break-in, we are going to have those people respond to attend to that particular situation. The same thing is happening in Johannesburg because a lot of car hijacking happening. People coming to church to come and steal your car. So cars disappear at Sandton Central Church. They're just gone. On Sabbath, you park your car. After church, it's gone. So people have put an alarm system and a tracking device on that vehicle, and they pay a monthly installment. So because they have armed that car, when you get into church, you just press a button and everything is activated. So that if your car is stolen, you are expecting the company to respond as quickly as possible and take care of that situation. We also now are facing a situation with a lot of robberies in Johannesburg where people come in during divine service. Not only do they take offerings at gunpoint, but they also take all the phones and laptops of church members. So some of the churches have now talked about engaging security companies that are 24 hours that shoot to kill to protect the premises even on Sabbath. And they will not be in the premises. They're using CCTV cameras to watch anything. If they see suspicious activity, they'll pass by and detect. If there's anything that happens, they will be there within a few seconds. So we're living in a society that is very dangerous. It has a high level of violence. And when it comes to that, you start asking yourself questions about, okay, what is prohibited by God and what is permissible? Is it wrong for me to pay a security company to protect my home for a whole month, including the Sabbath in those moments of time, or not? Should I pay Eskom for electricity for them to work and ensure that there's electricity in my house on the Sabbath? Is that permissible or not? In other places where water is supplied to our residences and you have to pay for water, should I pay a company to supply me water on Sabbath and run their machines and make sure that I have running water on Sabbath so I can take a nice shower and I can flush my toilet and things like that? So how far do you go in doing this? When I go to a store, if I go to a Spar or Checkers or Pick and Pay and buy bread that was cooked and transported on Sabbath and I buy it on Monday, am I not promoting working on Sabbath? If I order a book, for example, the books she's talking about online, and I order them on Thursday and they get transported even on Sabbath and they get to my house on Tuesday, have I really broken the Sabbath? So I'm trying to draw out these scenarios because they are very similar to what we have here. We have a situation where we have little control into what we can do. How far do you go with this? I'll give you an example with the room where I'm sleeping. I had to put a sign outside, please do not disturb, to try and force the cleaners that are being paid to clean today not to clean. So that's my principle. When I go to a hotel on Sabbath, I flip and I put a notice outside that do not clean my room today. That's how far I can because I have an option. I have an option of choosing to stop the cleaners from cleaning the room. And because I have that choice, I can exercise that choice and stop them from doing that. But do we have an option of these people not cooking for us at all? And we say, okay, we'll pay for all the meals until Friday. On Sabbath, we don't want your meal services. And do we have an option of preparing a meal, a Sabbath meal outside that could be utilized here on campus on the Sabbath? Or do we want to say, okay, on Sabbath, we will just bring mangoes, fruits, pineapples. It's the Sabbath. Buy lots of granola and muesli and soya milk and bring it to such camps. And then we tell the hotel, you cater for us on these days, but on this specific day, don't worry about us. Or we can decide to fast the whole Sabbath and say, well, we'll fast on that day. So these are options. All I'm trying to say is As Martin Luther said, you can stop a bird from building a nest on your head, but you can never stop it from flying over your head. It is important to understand the principles and to understand that should we be consistent with saying that we should not pay for services that we should also receive on Sabbath, then we can't be functional. We can't have security companies to our house. We can't have alarm systems. We can't buy bread. I can't order stuff from America because it's going to be transported on Sabbath. And we'll be in the world and will not be functional. So all I'm saying is there are certain situations where you can control. And there are certain situations that you can't really control. And I don't know what ideas could work with such kind of settings. At some of the camp meetings like this that have been organized before, in hotels, arrangements were made for Sabbath meals. And in some cases, the hotels will be paid in advance and they would prepare. In other cases, it will not be the hotel itself that prepares the meals. It's a different group of chefs that are instructed by the camp organizers to prepare the meals. And then the Sabbath meals are taken, prepared, because the hotel provides them even fridges for leftover food. And that particular group of people would prepare the meal the day before the Sabbath and then take all of it into these freezers. And then on Sabbath morning, just before lunch, heat it up in the warmers and get it ready to be served to the people. So there are various options that we could explore. All I'm just saying is, how far do we go with applying the principle in other situations? So I hope I did not confuse you. I just wanted to get the point across. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We spent a bit of time on that one, and we should, because these are matters that really do affect us. I've liked the last kind of comment. I'm also commenting. Where's the mic? Okay, the mic is there. I'll come to you. The fact that I think the emphasis is put in is what is in your control. I think human nature, we want to excuse sin. We want to excuse many things. For example, the example is just given. I'm sure he would have wanted to excuse that one. Besides, I've been invited. I'm in this hotel. I mean, we can't control much. So I may as well just allow everything else just to come in. So I think I just want to emphasize that even when you're in a situation where, fine, step 1 has failed, but at least at step 2, there's something you can do about it, do it. I think don't just say, well, besides, there's a little stain. I might as well have this whole thing be stained. I think that's not the right way to be reasoning. So if you know your levels of control are only at level 3, 4, and 5, 1 and 2, you have difficulty. Control 3, 4, and 5. To me, that's how I've understood it. But where you have no control whatsoever, I think there's very little to that which you can do. I will not mention the church. I was at a certain church in Johannesburg. They didn't have what you're saying, that the security is alarms and things. I found armed guys on the gate. They were armed to the teeth. And entering the gate, you were the worshiper, you're kind of it was so intimidating. You go in there, this guy comes on the window, he has this big gun over here and looking at you, and it was so intimidating. But to a point I asked, I said, you guys, what's going on here? So they said, they said the exact same thing what he's saying. We are having a lot of theft issues and security issues. Actually, I went there just after that incident in Johannesburg where people came in and took money at gunpoint. So I think most churches were responding to that you know what, we need to secure our members, secure our property. So even at the car park, there were guys with guns and all these things. So we're living in a very unfortunate world indeed. Yeah, go ahead and comment.
Thank you very much. I think this question is just as similar as to what our brother asked, Brother Soka. The first question he asked was somehow...
Sorry. It's a question or a comment?
A comment.
Okay.
I'm trying to comment.
Okay, I thought you wanted to cheat me and run to a question before time.
No.
Okay.
I'm not. Yeah. So I'm just looking at it to say, God is saying, I am God, and I change what? It's you and me who change, right? And according to what we've gathered this morning from the Sabbath reform, on the business transaction and everything. I think all of us, we got it, right? Right. So my comment is, let's say we start with I think we have got a problem as Adventists. We don't see opportunities. Much as we say these things, how many of us as Adventists would want to invest in a structure like this? I don't know.
As in this hotel compound?
Yes. Okay. Because this is one area that we are in the society and we know we do such things, but maybe we don't want to invest in such things. Of course, maybe it's an opportunity now to some of us to try to do that. Because in such a way, maybe we can avoid some of these things. On the other hand, about, say, the guards, for example, I don't know, but all I know is that in the Jewish setup, in the old Israelites, we have got stories from the Bible that they could set up watchmen. I don't know if these watchmen were even there during the Sabbath. That part I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the warnings or the intentions of putting guards or watchmen, it is to give us warning each time they see what? Danger. And when the question is each time, if this is the principle from back then, I don't want to impose what the Bible didn't say, but I'm just trying to say, I would think to say that even on Sabbath, in the gates to this land, maybe watchmen were there. Why? Because it has been a nation which has been at war with so many nations at once. So I don't know, but it's a matter of principle, as the pastor said. So I'm just looking at it to say, to some extent, maybe we should explore to say, can't we have businesses like this setup, Adventist ones, and we can run it the way what we want? That's one aspect. The other ones have been elaborated by the pastor.
Right, thank you. There was a last question to be answered, and that was about true education. How can you make true education home-like? Like a church school, or whether you want to run as an institution, but you're trying to make it as home-like as you possibly can. So that's the last question before we go to other series of questions.
Home is home. School is school. Whether church school, it is not the same. So there are certain things that will never run the same way. So if you want to run a church school, you take the principles and apply, but it will not be the same as the home. I like watching documentaries. There are these Christian groups, the Amish, the Hurrites, the Mennonites. Those guys live in units. That's what they call themselves. So the way they run their units, I'll give the example of those ones because they're the ones who run little schools. So they run schools, but in the school as well, they don't only focus on the academics. They have chores and activities that need to be done throughout the day, and all the students participate. So they are the others are sent to the kitchen to manage the food for breakfast, manage food for lunch, manage food for supper. Others manage the farms, and others harvest the crops for the students or for the whole community to eat. Some of them, they sell out, others run the factory side. So there's a lot that can be done. So if you're going to run a church school or an institute school, take all the principles that are supposed to be run in the home school, a well-rounded physically, mentally, and spiritually. So you want to have all-round principles applied on the students. One of the challenges you meet is on the time of starting the school. It is not the same as how you do it in a home setup where it's just you and your kids. You can switch the times and all that and play around it based on what you're seeing within your home. Whereas the school setup is many kids are coming from different areas. Maybe there's distance involved, or some are close, or there are criteria that you have to consider. So that will guide on the time that you are running the school. But whatever happens within the setup, make sure all the three elements needed for a true education are applied: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. You can also check on this singing group, the one in Canada, Fountain View as well, how they run their school, and how there are many departments that are involved. In that way, the kids are able to spread around doing other things, not only focusing on the academics.
All right. Our time is up for the question and answer session. But to be fair, since I had not warned you that we are running out of time, because the comments were many, I would want to acknowledge those who feel that I still have a question. Then I should see your hands. There's one. There's two. There's no other. I've seen these two people. Is anyone else who's saying, may I still have something? Fine. So I have my Gondwe and I have Mr. Tsoka here. So go ahead, ask your questions. Then after that, we should get some break before supper time comes around.
All right. I don't even believe that I'm asking this question, but because I really want to have grounded principles, I'll still ask it. And I'll give the exhibits to make it more clear. The question is, can a messenger of God be wrong or not right? I'll start with the exhibits of Paul and Peter. They had issues in how they dealt with the Gentiles, and they corrected each other in how to deal with that. There were cases of Paul and Apollo and Barnabas. Several other cases in the Bible. I think the indirect thing I want to ask is Ellen White always right? I think that's the question I'm asking in between the lines. Not that I doubt her, but I really want to have grounded principles on that, and I don't know exactly to whom the question is going.
Can we paraphrase the question to say, was she always right? Or do you still want to maintain that, is she always right? Current, okay, fine.
My question is almost similar to the very first question that was asked. There are two areas. I'll read the quotation from Last Day Events. As the siege of Jerusalem by the Roman armies was a signal of flight to the Judean Christians, so the assumption of power on the part of our nation in the decree enforcing the Papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. It will then be the time to leave the large cities, preparatory to leaving the smaller ones for retired home in secluded places among the mountains. Okay, on this, maybe because I was out, maybe it was responded to, but there are two things that maybe I really need some clearance. Firstly is when we are talking of the assumption of power on the part of our nation, are we talking of the bill that was presented some time back, or we are talking of a decree being set to say now Sunday law has been enforced? That's my first question. Secondly, do we have standards that define what a large city is and what is a small city or a small town? Or is it dependent on countries on how you define what a large city is and what smaller ones are? And then because the quotation says it's leaving the large cities is in preparation also to leave the smaller ones, do we have a signal for leaving the smaller ones? That maybe SOP has given.
the questions have been heard. Can I withdraw the microphone? There is a question on the platform, okay? They have the privilege of not being seen face to face, so they can get away with that.
In setting up family industries, some industries may require significant capital. Is village bank in courts of families a good idea according to testimonies to help another kickstart? Is village bank of families a good idea according to the testimonies to help another kickstart?
All right, I think let's start, which have already been asked. Can the messenger of God be wrong? Cases of Paul, Barnabas, and the likes, they seem to have made some mistakes, corrected each other. Should we say Ellen White was or is always right? That there's nowhere she can be corrected as well. Let's start there.
It's a question of whether prophets are human or not. Definitely prophets are human. Prophets are human beings. Prophets can make mistakes, but not under inspiration. So the difference between you and a prophet is that God communicates to a prophet information. And that information comes through dreams, visions, and things like that. When that prophet sits down and under the authority or under inspiration documents that which was shown by the Lord. For example, Moses writing about creation when he wasn't there. He was only born in the book of Exodus. When he documents that under inspiration, then what he writes becomes the word of God. And whatever he has written becomes infallible. Did Moses make mistakes in his life? Yes, he killed an Egyptian. He sinned. Instead of pointing the rock, he hit it. So Moses is not our example. Our example is Jesus. But we say that because Moses would make those mistakes that human nature makes, could Moses have made a mistake in writing and transmitting that which God communicated with him? No. The answer is a big no. God ensures that what he wants us to learn from prophets that he inspires and they decide to write is transmitted to us the way he wanted it to be transmitted to us. And that applies to Paul, who was writing under inspiration. That applies to Peter. How about Ellen White? Ellen White was a human being just like Moses was. And as a human being, there were moments when she wrote under inspiration, such as the Conflict of Ages series. All her writings were written under inspiration. And under inspiration, she could not be making a mistake. Because if we're going to say she's going to make a mistake in her writings, in terms of a mistake of a thought, then Moses could also make a mistake. So could Matthew, and so could Peter, and so could Paul. So the Bible now becomes a book that we all need to look at and find out using current science what is fact and what is a mistake, what is fact and what is fallacy. So we don't want to get that. The Bible should be the one that tests science and not the other way around. So can Ellen White's writings always be trusted? Yes. Has she made mistakes in her writings? Mistakes that in her writings in the sense of her inspired writings under inspiration? No. Have there been accusations that she has made mistakes? Yes. Are there answers to those accusations? Yes. And once again, Pure Light Missions has done a series on Ellen White. It's there on our YouTube channel. There's a whole camp meeting that we did where we talked about Ellen White. What is a prophet? How did she write her books? And are the books trustworthy and stuff like that? So you can go to Pure Light Missions and you'll be able to understand the series that we did on the Spirit of Prophecy and to what extent you can rely on her writings. So I think that's all I'll say for that. Thank you.
All right. I just want to add that some of those issues are tackled in chapters 1 to 5 of Selected Messages, Book 1.
Oh yeah, the Sunday law question. What is the assumption of power that Ellen White is referring to in the book Great Controversy? That assumption of power, I understand it to be reference to Sunday law. So what happened in 1888 was an attempt by the papacy to assume power in the United States, and that attempt failed. So the papacy was trying to assume power through that bill, and the bill was never brought to vote. So it died in the committee in 1888. So this statement cannot be referring to that event. And the book you are reading from is Great Controversy, which was published in 1915. And so she speaks of this assumption of power as a future event. And 1915 comes obviously after 1888. It is also very important to understand that that statement is basically giving us a last signal. And the last signal in the sense that the people who were fleeing the destruction of Jerusalem, the Christians, saw that as the last signal for them to leave the city of Jerusalem. And after they left the city of Jerusalem, most of them went to another city. It's called the city of Perga. And others went to other villages, others went to the mountains, and then they migrated back to other cities. So Ellen White is taking the example of what the Jews did then, who were Christians, and applying it to our time, which was fleeing the city that is under attack. And because when a nation declares a national Sunday law, a Sunday closing law, that is national, then it's a sign that the papacy is beginning to enter that nation. So it's supposed to be a signal to the people who are Christians in that nation to start moving away from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. Move away from the big cities to the smaller cities, to the villages. And if you understand the stage, she says you move from the big cities and then you, while in preparation to leave the smaller cities. So she's basically saying you are moving from the large city to the smaller city, but when you get to the smaller city, it's not to stay. It's almost just like a form of adjustment. You move from a large city to a smaller one. When you get there, you are just getting yourself ready to move to a village and also to move to the mountain. So she's just basically saying you're moving from the big city quickly, and then you get your act together, and then you move from that city to villages. And when you get to the village, you're getting yourself ready to also be moving to the mountains. What is a small city? I don't know whether I can say that the large cities and the smaller cities are usually determined by population and development. The idea is not to identify what the large city and the smaller cities. The principle in the statement is when a Sunday law is declared in Malawi, move away from the big cities and prepare yourself for the worst case situation. So if you are still in the city. So it's more of a statement of cautionary steps that you need to take quickly to safeguard your safety while you are preparing to move to a more secure place where you can stay longer. So it's a running away kind of approach of what Christ talked about. If they persecute in this city, you should run to another one. So it's almost like you are relocating away from place where you'll easily be found to places where you can escape easier. So that is, I don't know whether this is helpful, but I just thought I should throw the ideas out.
All right. I hope the answers are coming out clearly. You know, there's something I am yet to fully make a full determination. But I get an observation that when Sister White is writing about running away, and when she's writing about living in the country, I feel like sometimes we mix these two things. Then it becomes complicated. I think the presenter has said this many times. I hope I'm not quoting it wrong, but that the issue of living in the countryside, it's like it's a norm. Perhaps doesn't even have to be stressed. Okay? As in, this is ideal, this is the best place for you to be. Now, when we're talking about these other things, we are not now giving an indicator as to when country living should happen. I find that to be a little bit twisted in the way maybe sometimes these testimonies are being interpreted. Because if you hear what she's asked, the transition, leave the big city for the smaller one, then into the mountain, that person is running away. So you're being told, my friend, this is a signal. If you are here, when you see this, get there. When it gets to this whatever, run there and find some solitary place, the angels will feed you there. So this will apply to everyone, whether those who live in the country, those who live in the city. When it's time for the Sunday laws to be passed, there will come a point when even that person who is in the countryside will have to run. Because when she mentions the solitary places, the way I understand that English is you're going to a place, you're literally going to a place where you are going to feel safe. You are hidden from many people and all these things, whether God will hide you in the cave, but it's a solitary place. But when you talk about country living, it says live somewhere where there are many people there, where you can have this, where you can have that. Are you seeing these two things are very different? You are not talking about one and the same. So I find it to be problematic when one is thinking about country living and now you're reading those texts that, okay, so I should wait for the assumption of power. So that sequence is a running away sequence. That Lilongwe is under clamps, run from there, go to Zomba. Zomba at least a little bit better. When the clamps have hit Zomba, run away from there, because the quotation I think that was read, I think by him, he mentions about those in the city and the villages will have to flee. So when you're talking fleeing and talking about country living, they're not the same. It's unfortunate that on the most part, most of the presentations I've heard about country living, or those who seem to be opposed to country living, they take country living as this thing of running away from the Sunday law. So these two things are mentioned in one breath. I think that is a very, very big mistake. Because Sister White, when she talks about country living, is something so calm, so gentle, raise your provisions, do this and do that. It is not in anticipation of running away. Because even from those environments, there will come a clamp. Not just no buy, no sell, or food is not available, but people are hunting to destroy you, and you have to run away. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that if one is thinking about country living, then that is not the text to be reading. That text is for you to know when will be the time for me to boat and find myself in safety in some cave, in some mountain. The other one, the assumption of power has been handled. We jump to the village bank. You're trying to raise Banamazalo. You're trying to raise some capital to have a homestead, home industry. There are village banks out there. Is that a good idea for you to raise some capital?
Is a village bank in Katabila or some sort of? Does it work on the same principle of Katabila? Okay.
It seems we don't understand what village bank is, so let me try to explain what village bank is. I've also done village bank before, but on a more professional level. Basically, the idea of village bank, even some other entities were doing it, so we're doing it as professionals. So you agree an amount, okay? So let's agree we'll put in 50,000 every month into this pool. You agree that every one of you has to be patronizing that pool. Okay, it's part of the conditions. So if there's 1 million in there, whether you put in 10 million in there, you have to utilize it. So I have to come in there, loan some 5 million, and I use it. I have to put it back with an interest. So you agree a certain interest that you are using for the interest. It's usually lower than the bank rate. So what happens is it gives you leverage that you have opportunity to get money. You can use it for your business, but when you're putting it back, it comes up with a little bit of an interest. The idea is you are going to share the profit at the end of the day according to your initial investments and according to all that you put in. So even if we agree we'll put in 50,000, but me, I had excess, I was putting in there 100,000. So the amount of money at the end of my year, if it's 100,000, I have 1.2 million. This guy, because I was putting 50-50, you have 600. So you're going to put the weights on the amount of money we've actually put. Then the profit will share according to the amount of money that has been put in there. It's a very simple principle. So in the village bank, it's just on a much smaller scale, not so small, but people agree a certain amount, so they put in an amount. People have to loan from that amount, and they give back with a certain interest. That's basically how Village Bank operates. I hope I have enlightened a little bit.
All right. I'm not going to talk much about the bank, but I think that the principle of country living and homesteading is to get out of debt. So as much as it is possible and it is practical, you don't want to start your industry on borrowed money. So actually that's one of the reasons why we are moving to the country, to live a debt-free life. We all may have debts, and we are all busy maybe clearing some of our debts, but one day we want to be free from what? Free from debts. So that's the principle. So when you move to the country, what if you, I know I did not have enough time maybe to share a number of examples of home industries that one can do. But for example, if you are offering services, you don't need capital, you need a skill. So once you have the skill, you need to have the customers who need your skills, and you charge the services. For example, you're a graphic designer, you're developing website. One of the ladies who was developing my website, she's actually a country dweller. She does that. I pay her online when the website is done, and she's making her money in the country. She doesn't need to get money from Village Bank to develop a website for me. So if you're offering services, for example, you're a therapist, you're helping those who are sick. You don't need the capital. You can actually use one of the rooms at your country home, to meet those who are in need of your services, and you can provide the services because, a therapist is a therapist. You work with your hands. You work with the knowledge that you have and the experience and that you have. When it comes to planting, beekeeping, whatever it is, don't become overambitious to start with 1,000 beehives when you can afford 4. So start with 4 beehives. When you sell the honey, you make 8. When you sell, you make 16. When you sell, you make 20. Learn the power of starting small and grow from there without borrowing money from anyone. I also shared the principle of when you go to the country, grow your food first. Some things are difficult to do if you are hungry. Even to think when you're hungry, it's difficult. So when you go to the country, grow your food first. Because there are so many things people can do, but when you wake up in the morning, if I am worried, what will my children eat today? There's no way I can think of doing something important. Because I'll be thinking, what are the children eating today? But when I'm no longer worried about what the children are going to eat, there's enough food in the house. It gives my mind, the luxury to think better on what industries can I do. For example, in Mwanza, they have tangerines. One tangerine tree can give you 80,000 kwacha when you harvest. Which means if someone can plant 1,000 tangerine trees in a year, they can get 80 million kwacha. But in Mwanza, people are poor because they don't have time to think of planting 1,000 tangerine trees. They are worried about what they can eat today. So they plant a lot of maize and harvest 5 bags. But the same farm, if they can put tangerine trees, it can give them more money to buy the maize, the rice, the beans, and everything that they need in their life. So some things, they require patience. Something they require time. If you plant plantains, they may only give you profit maybe in the 2nd year. But what will you be eating in between? While you are waiting to sell your plantains in 2 years' time, what will you be eating in between when you are waiting to start selling your tangerines in 4 years' time? So start with the food. Food will give you the energy to think better. But then start small and grow from there. Avoid debts.
All right, thank you very much. Since for me to explain how to implicate myself, so I need to free myself from Brother Gandhi here. These village bank things, they should not be entered into if you have nothing. The way I saw it, for those who already have money, it's like talk, I have money, you have money, he has money, he has money. So we're saying, since this money is in my pocket, can we all put this money here so this money goes to this one to do something big, so to speak? But unfortunately, that concept, the way it is understood in Malawi, is understood that if you're too broke, the best thing you need to do is to what? Join these kind of things. I would say absolutely no. Because you're really going to put yourself in a lot of debt. What happens under other circumstances, if all of you agree to put in money in there, if you default on your whatever, you already have capital input which you already put in there. So they will just take from the money. So your collateral is your own money that is already there. I'm getting the point I'm trying to make. But if you're going in there, you have nothing, and then you taking all this money, you're putting yourself in a serious mess. So it is indeed not something to be considered to say, I want to have money, I want to borrow money, I want to do this. Absolutely no. It's the same way like going to get loans anywhere else, or even to get from another individual. So perhaps we need to understand it from that particular perspective. So yes, please shun debts and shun loans. These things will just put you in a very serious mess. All right, unless you have well calculated plans and you already have something. Even the banks will ask you, what is your collateral? Because their assumption is you have something already. That if you fail to work well with what you're asking, they'll take what you have already. But it is not always the best route. You really must be very financially mature to be doing things like that. Otherwise, this is the end of our question and answer session. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your questions. And to the panelists, thank you so much for the answers that you gave. I think we're going to stop here so that we have a longer period of break from now up until 7 o'clock when we are coming in here again. I know in between this time somewhere we are going to have something just to play around in our mouth, but the next meeting again is at 7. So I'll ask you to stand so that we can pray. Let us pray. Beloved Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for the wonderful time you gave us to interact, to reflect upon the things that are in your word and the presentations and the thoughts that were given. If at all, Heavenly Father, in our words, in our actions, we have erred against you, we just want to ask and pray that you forgive us. Continue to teach us, continue to know the truth for ourselves, that Heavenly Father, even when we are put on trial, we should be able to give a reason for the faith that is within us. Help us to be reasonable. Help us to be teachable. Help us, Heavenly Father, to have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you, Father, once again for all the programs that are still yet to happen. I pray, Heavenly Father, as we be going to the final session, you prepare our hearts and our minds. Thank you, Father, for you have heard and answered this prayer because I've asked and prayed in Jesus' name. Amen.